Good evening, everyone. Today's BOA adjustment meeting will be held in session. Please rise to the national anthem. Pledge of Allegiance, pardon.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll take attendance for roll call.
Julian Calagridis,
Present.
Matthew Boggs,
Present.
Gary Jondro has resigned,
Rajandro has resigned, yes, correct.
Megan Marshall,
Here.
George Mathis, Courtney Gurno, now Courtney Fetzer,
Yes, present.
and Miriam Trace.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum, and both Ms. Fetzer and Ms. Trace will be voting members for this evening. One point of order for the board, if I may, Jack Morrison, attorney for the board, is the agenda talks about reviewing and approval for the minutes of January 10th, 2024 and February 14th, 2024, but in looking at the minutes for February, the minutes for January of 2024 were dispensed with at the meeting in February. So only the minutes of February 2024 need be addressed this evening.
Approval of February's minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion is to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Ayes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion's held.
Ms. Tracy?
Minutes are approved.
You'll be voting on all those things. So you voted aye, yes? Yeah, okay. Okay, 5-0, passes 5-0, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I could just take a moment, I know that staff and the applicant have a case before, just to, because we haven't seen each other in a little bit of time. Tonight's case is a special exception case, which I think, in all my time working with this board, I think this is the first such of this type of case coming before the board. This is a fairly new process, if you will, that the city has implemented by way of code in implementation. And so, but the report will guide you through. It's very similar in terms of procedure to the variance cases you're familiar with handling, in terms of there are 6 criteria that all need to be equally weighed by the board, the facts and presentations from applicant and from staff and from public comment, and then making your decision based on those criteria as it contained in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, new business. We're going to have case number BOA 23-0007-4913, Rain Shadow Drive. Are the owners or the representatives, please present them.
I don't believe that. Tonight's case is BOA 24-00001.
Yeah, that was a reference to the minutes case from February. That's okay. You can recall the case off of tonight's agenda.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Case number BOA 24-0001. Please state your full name before addressing the board.
Good evening, members. This is Stephanie Streeter, Associate Planner for Community Development. Tonight I'm presenting 3700 Nolte Road, a Board of Adjustment Special Exception, BOA 24-00001. For background, the zoning is R3 multifamily. The total acreage for the lot is 2.23 acres. And the area of the primary structure is about 3,000 square feet. This is important because the code that we are doing a special exception from states that an accessory structure may be 50% of the primary structure or 800 square feet, whichever is less. So our maximum size for this particular lot would be 800 square feet. In 2017, Community Development did approve a 900 square foot shed through a building permit. And the size of the proposed shed that the applicant is requesting is 1,200 square feet. So it is 300 square feet more than what exists now and 400 square feet more than the maximum allowed for our code. These are visual depictions of the lot at this time. I do want to edit the map since we have posted this. The parcels were combined, so he actually has that whole rectangle that is on that future land use map. So it is that full 2.23 acres. This is the proposed shed where it exists at this time. That is where it is located, just a little bit behind the primary structure. Staff is recommending approval for the special exception from 3.14.1.A.2.G of the Land Development Code to allow the 1,200 square foot accessory structure, which will be 400 square feet over the allowed maximum. As a reminder, the Board of Adjustment shall make findings that the requirements of Section 1.3.2.D.2.E have or have not been demonstrated by the applicant. The Board of Adjustment may approve this application, approve with certain conditions or safeguards, or deny this application. We are requesting approval of the findings of fact. I do have to go on record. Prior to this meeting, we did receive one call from a Marilyn Esky. She lives at 3239 Filloway Circle. She had concerns regarding the 1,200 square foot accessory structure, regarding aesthetics, potentially it looking more industrial in a residential area. She also had concerns that allowing a 1,200 square foot shed could open him up to allow a business in there or potentially have any noise. But those were all the verbal complaints that we received regarding this application. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trader. I'd like to open the floor for questions from the board.
Was there any indication that the building is being built for a business?
No, he did provide us a letter that stated he is using it to store antique cars and just to keep them from the weather. That is the letter that we received from the applicant.
So, okay.
He provided that in his application.
Yeah, that's all I have.
In regards to noise complaints, have there been any adjustments to the potential installation of the building of the shed due to the amount of noise and the tools and the requirements of the car maintenance and other work that be done?
I'll defer that to the applicant.
Thank you.
Chairman, I would just like to acknowledge our board member.
Mr. Mathis is here, and so
For the
Ms.
record.
Trace will be participating, but will not be a voting member of tonight's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, please state your name for the board.
Stephen D. Clark. I live at 3700 Nolte Road, St. Cloud, Florida, and I'm also with my wife, Christine Clark, who resides at the same address this evening. Do you want some background or just answer your question?
I'm interested in the particular structure that you're going to be building and potential actions we can take in order to just kind of safeguard the noise complaints.
Okay. What you can see from that drawing is to the side of that yellow block is a fence, and down both sides of my property there's about 436, I think it says 500 on one side, of fenced-in yard that is fairly mature with growth, trees, brush, shrubs and stuff like that. The other thing is that what I do there is just tinker with old cars. I just want to get them out of the heat. There's been a property, a building there since I thought it was 2006 when we had it they came out and measured the concrete and all that jazz, and it was all approved. I thought I read in the history of the property 2006. I think one of the ladies here said 2017, but it got so worn out and damaged that it was time to get people to come in to repair it, and everyone was saying it's so dilapidated, you're better off, probably more cost effective to just replace that building. With regards to addressing your problem, I'm not making any noise. There's no paint and body shop, there's no an electric drill maybe, but the people who we're procuring it from, a company in Ocala, have talked about putting a 2-inch thick insulation in there, which is a proper insulation. It has two factors. One, it keeps the heat down, and secondly, it will have a noise retardant quality to it. And really and truly, the use of it is, if you were kind enough to grant it, is not going to change. We've never had the police called. We've never had neighbours complaining about, you know, the public coming and going, or it's a business. The Better Bureau's, you know, has never had a complaint from a customer because we don't have any. My wife and I are both retired music professors, and we retired just in November of last year. And I've always wanted to tinker with old cars. That's it. I can assure you there's going to be no noise if you're standing 10 feet away from the building. I can assure you of that. And there's, I think it's something that I should cross out now. There's absolutely no intention of being in business. I'm far too old now. I'm retired. And I just want to have pleasant, quiet enjoyment of
Thank you
that
for your
shed.
time.
So,
Thank you. Does anyone else have any follow-up questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. To the industrial question, I'm just curious, the height.
I think it's 10 feet at the, it's going to be 10 feet at the sides, which will give a pitch, I think, of about 13 feet, if I'm not mistaken. My wife and I live in a two-story residence, which has a 4-foot crawl underneath it, which is great if you're doing plumbing or electrical work. So it's double height plus that. So it's half the height of the house. The house is white with a grey roof. The proposed property is going to be white with a grey roof. It's going to be beautiful and blend in. Frankly, unless you go up on tippy toes and look over our fence, which is a 6-foot high standard Home Depot wooden fencing all the way around, you can't even see it. It's in the backyard. You can't see it from the road. We're on very good terms with most of our neighbours, and we've lived there we've lived there for over 25 years, and we're not about to start any trouble. So, I'm going to answer.
I make it a business to drive past every property before I rule on it,
Okay.
and you have a great property.
Thank you, sir.
I think it adds to the aesthetic of that road in general, and I'm sorry you had to change your address a couple times because I know that road name has changed a couple times.
Well, yes, and of course we lost about 15 feet at the front. I don't know who's responsible for 5:30 in the morning, all that traffic running into the turnpike, but it wakes up our little puppy, so we're up at 6 a.m.
That's the end of my questions, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew. Megan, any follow-up questions?
I do, excuse me. Member Marshall has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said the color is going to match, but is the exterior siding going to match the accessory building to the principal structure?
It will absolutely be spot on.
Okay. Same material?
Yes, they are still required by our code to have the exterior match the principal structure. That will not be an exception to the code. That is
Okay, I
part
just
of
wanted
that.
to confirm that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that is our code requirement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does that satisfy?
No, that's, yes,
Thank you,
satisfied.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board have any questions?
If there are no questions from the board, then call for public comment.
Is there any public comment I can hear from the board?
Do I have?
Are there any
Are there any
members,
public comments
Forgive me, sorry.
for us to hear?
are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this?
Appears not.
Appears not.
In favor or opposition of this request? No?
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any.
all right. We'll move to make a motion to approve or disapprove.
It would be procedurally, you'd close the public
Close the
hearing
public
at this
hearing.
time.
Thank you.
Unless you had any follow-up questions for the applicant or staff, and if not, then you can deliberate and call for a motion.
Okay. I'd like to close the comment section for this meeting and then move on. And then can
To
Mr. Jackson?
Discussion?
Discussion. Yes,
If
I'll
anybody
put
has
the
any
floor to
discussion? No?
Mr. Chairman,
Get on
Mr.
the
Chairman,
microphone.
into the mic so everybody can hear you. Gotta be on the mic.
Thank you. I think having a potential condition so that way the insulation can guarantee the sound, so that way there's at least something there that will give some incentive for someone that may have a complaint
Mr. Chairman,
about that.
I'm sorry, I'm just not picking up on the mic as you
No
speak
problem.
right
I'll move
into
it a
the
little
mic,
bit.
just so that they can hear everything.
I wanted to reassure that the complaints about sound could be addressed by potentially ensuring that the safeguard that's going to be required by the buildings code anyway, the insulation for the heat and everything like that, would allow for us to move forward with a little bit of a wiggle room. So if there's a complaint, we can say there's been a structural action taken place for that particular complaint.
You're suggesting it's some type of a condition?
Yes, that they already anticipate doing with their current plan that doesn't adjust anything they're doing.
Okay. So, again, whoever makes a motion and then in whatever direction, make sure that you contemplated the 6 criteria in the report for special exception. And then, if there is a condition you wish to include, just clearly state what that would be in direction of your motion.
Ms. Streeter, can I ask you one more follow-up question?
You have to reopen public comment.
Thank you. Do you recall what was it 2 inches of insulation for the special condition, I think it was?
Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry, but I just can't hear you.
Oh, pardon me. I wanted to clarify what the amount of insulation that was going to be there, so that way the special condition could be in alignment with that. No more, no less.
Do you want to hear from the applicant on that?
Yes.
That would be the applicant. Our requirements are architecturally for the exterior. Any other installation would be the applicant. So.
Okay.
So while he comes up, if I can ask a question in addition, because I have a familiarity with, I'm assuming it's a metal building.
Yes, sir.
It's a metal building, and then the insulation that you talked about, is it just in the roof or the roof and walls?
It's going to be the roof and the walls. And it's a professional product that's
Is
sold.
it tubular steel or red iron?
It is, no, it's just tubular steel. It's, I think they said it's 2 1/4 inch galvanized metal. And the insulation is exactly 2 inches, and it's actually stuck to the walls and the ceiling. And evidently it's going to make it somewhat cooler in there for me, you know, when the summer returns. It will help in insulation for me, and absolutely with sound. I can't remember the name of it. I can picture it, and obviously, if it's approved, if you'll be kind enough, then we'll work with the code enforcement here. They can inspect that you're getting exactly what you want, which was part of my plan in the future anyway. So,
All right, thank you.
I mean, my familiarity with the buildings is they're, you know, the regular steel structures that you see with the outside corrugated metaling and metal. So I know it is, I can see what's being built, yeah.
Just for clarification, though, this building's not going to look like that because the code requires it to match the principal structure. So it's actually going to look more aesthetically pleasing because it's going to be a secondary structure that looks similar material and color of the principal structure. But the bones of it will be the metal.
So what's the exterior structure or material made out of?
okay, so I don't wish to correct you, Miss Marshall, but aesthetically, it's going to look exactly the same. The house is painted white, and the house is constructed, I think it's a wood construction, but it has stucco on the side, white, grey trim, grey roof. The proposed building is white, obviously brand new white metal, and with a grey structured roof. And I plan to put a couple of windows in there that my wife can put window boxes there. So, you know, we have taste, and it's going to have to be something that we're proud of, if you'd be kind enough to grant it. So it's going to be a perfect match. It's, you know, the house is very sort of square and oblong with a grey roof, and the new building proposal would be much the same.
Just for a point of clarification, sorry, Stephanie Streeter, Associate Planner. At building permit, he will have to make it look aesthetically. That includes the materials and things like that. That would be further discussed when he does apply for his building permit. So it will not be on the metal exterior.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Streeter. Are there any other questions? Okay,
Close public comment?
close the public comment.
I'm sorry. Mrs. Streeter, I do have one question. I'm a devil's advocate person. What is the rationale for the limit on how big his accessory building could be?
I'm sorry, do you mind
What-
clarifying that question?
Why would the city want to limit how small or how large his accessory building could be?
So typically with the code, it depends on how big the accessory structure. I believe it's more aesthetics, what's allowed on a property. You don't want a accessory structure to be larger than the actual principal structure. In this case, the reason why we do support it is because his structure is about 3,000 square feet. He's not doing 1,500. Our max is 800. We can understand of the need for a house that large to be. He was just limited by the code, which would be 800.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to close public comment.
All right, we'll close public comment. Any open discussion with the board? Based on the 6 criteria, I would also like to add the potential addition of the insulation being a certain condition that we add.
Discussion?
I think, right,
Oh,
I understand
discussion.
that you had recommended that condition be addressed. Unless there's more discussion, you would call for one of the members to make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, any motions?
I think before we make a motion, I just want a point of clarification too, based off of what we were shown. This building, while large in size and larger than what the code allows, because he's aggregated that lot to make it much larger, I think the footprint of it's gonna be a lot smaller, when you're driving by, and smaller property-wise. You've got a couple of acres, so this building, I think, would actually fit in. So,
Okay, great comments. I agree.
is there any other discussion?
Are we discussing?
Yes.
Yes?
I personally feel a little assuaged by the 13-foot, I believe, limit that we're facing. That sounds more like a mother-in-law home from an aesthetic point of view, just personally.
Can you clarify the 13-foot? I'm sorry. I didn't know what you meant.
Do you mean the size, the square footage?
Yeah, he said it wasn't going to be, I believe it was 13 feet tall. I'm sorry, he can't correct me at this moment.
It's 10 feet walls, 13 feet at the peak.
Okay,
It's because of the pitch of the roof.
right, yes, I'm sorry. I just was talking to the
That's
maximum.
okay. That's why I wanted to clarify, because
Yeah,
like, wait,
no,
I want to
yeah,
understand
absolutely.
we're on the same page.
Sorry to misrepresent the theoretical building. If we're not, I have no more comments.
Yeah, that, I think that your comment is complete, and your concern is completely valid. But we can only do what is presented in front of us, and if this gentleman chooses to change the use of that, then that would be on the city to go and check out and enforce their code and apply it that way. But what's presented to us, I think, is a good proposal,
Oh, yeah,
if anybody else disagrees.
no disagreement.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll
Or I
second.
would like to make a motion to approve the BOA 240001 application as presented based on 3.4.2D of the Land Development Code,
With all the 6 criteria.
meeting all the 6 criteria.
And did you wish to include in that a condition with regard to the insulation
I-
as referenced by the chairman?
Based on the usage and what I had read, I do not.
Didn't feel it was necessary, okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Well, we have to have a second. I think, Mr. Boggs, did you say?
I will actually, yeah, I'll still second that.
Okay,
motion.
so now we have a second. Yes, sir. Now you can call for a vote.
I'd like to call for a vote. For all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those
Nay?
nay?
So passes 5-0. Okay, passes 5-0. Special exception approved based on the motions and the land development code. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience this evening as I get acclimated.
I did a great job.
Sir, I was just wondering, is it our place to discuss replacement or recommendation even of replacement or, the appointment of, what's the word, alternates, and to make them regulars since Mr. Jandro has left the board?
That'll be notified. It's up to the council
Okay.
to fill those vacancies.
All right.
But we'll alert all the appropriate personnel.
Is there anything?
We've got 6, no, 1, 2, 3, we got 6, right? Yeah, I can count. So we're only missing 1, and that will be, so Ms. Fetzer will, if we add an alternate, then Ms. Fetzer would move to be a regular, and Ms. Trace will become the first alternate. I'm not sure it works quite that way because seats are filled in a particular fashion, so I don't know exactly how that'll work, but we'll alert council to fill whatever vacancy we need to fill.
Is there any problem with us speaking to the council members to recommend filling the position with somebody in particular?
You can
Okay.
speak to the council as members of the community. I'm
Just-
sure
just,
they'd like to
making
hear. Sure, they'd like to hear from you.
Yeah.
I think that's all we had on the agenda this evening, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dorsey. All right, we will end this Board of Adjustment meeting for this evening. Thank you so much for your time.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn? Yeah.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye-bye. We're adjourned. Nice job, y'all.
Thank you.